Well, the NDP is introducing a motion at Queen's Park to help people choose Ontario-made and Canadian-made products in response to U.S. tariff threats. And for more on the motion, we're joined right now by Ontario NDP leader Marit Stiles. Thank you very much for taking time to speak with us. Before we get to that, I have to get your reaction, your response to Premier Ford's comments on judges.
Well, look, it's really concerning, right? The Premier's comments about politicizing or electing judges is actually quite dangerous, I would say. He seems to have some sort of vendetta against anybody who disagrees with him, even if they're, in the judiciary. And, my warning and my message to Doug Ford today is we don't want to be the 51st state, and we don't want to import their Americanized court system into our country either. I think it matters to Canadians. It's part of our values and who we are. And the Premier's comments today are very disrespectful and, frankly, a bit dangerous.
Okay, Ms. Stiles, thank you very much for responding to that. Let's get your take a little bit more on the NDP proposal regarding Ontario-made, Canadian-made products.
Yeah. Well, we brought forward a motion today to the government, which unfortunately just moments ago they voted against. But our motion is an attempt to get the government to bring forward policies that allow people, when they're spending their own money and groceries and products, to choose Ontario. And in doing that, to strengthen Ontario in the face of what we know are some pretty exceptional circumstances and an attack from the United States. So first of all, it would require the big grocery giants like Loblaws and Sobeys and Walmart to label any sudden price hikes. So that means that if a product's price jumps up more than, say, 2% in 2 weeks, they have to mark it, just like they mark it if they're putting something on sale. So it helps people to understand better why there's a price hike, and that's really important. But secondly, and I think this is really important, it's going to tell people by labeling all U.S. imports what is Ontario-made and what are Canadian-made goods. So one of the things we're hearing from a lot of people right now is that they want to spend their money supporting Canadian goods, Ontario-made products. But what we're missing is clear, transparent labeling of those products. So easy thing to do, a really common sense solution. It was disappointing that the government just voted against it.
And also, I'd like to get you to weigh in on what's going on with bike lanes here in Toronto.
Yeah, well, look, the fact is that this government, every time they bring in some measure or law, they forget to check in about whether or not it's impeding people's rights. And so I think, once again, you have the courts coming out against the government, and the government is going to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars fighting these things in court. I mean, they did this when they tried to change the way that Toronto folks actually elect their representatives. They keep going to the courts to fight these things, but in the end, they're just wasting a whole lot of money. What they should be doing is sitting down and actually listening to people. And I have to say, I think they're showing a lot of disregard. Look, if they really want to reduce congestion, we brought forward some pretty significant solutions in the last election, including, by the way, removing the tolls on the 407, things like that would, stop people from sitting in traffic. We know, those of us who live in the city of Toronto, that a lot of the congestion is actually because of construction. I'd like the government to be focusing on some of the other issues that we're facing right now. But this, and the Premier going off on judges today, it's a bit frightening.
And, also part of that comes down to bail reform. So let's also talk about that, fighting crime and, messages to victims, because, they're going to feel a certain way about this.
Look, I've always said we need to bring in some bail reform for sure. But I do think what the government, they like to talk about bail reform, but they don't want to talk about the situation in our courts right now. And, what really is of concern, I think, is the fact that in Ontario's court system, something that this provincial government actually controls because they are underfunding our courts right now, our courts are so backlogged that bad guys are getting off and folks who might even be innocent are stuck behind bars for years. So, we've encouraged the government to do something about that court backlog. And they don't want to talk about that because that's something that's actually their responsibility. And that's frustrating, right? Because they could be changing that right now. And they also refuse to move forward on a whole lot of other issues. But I do want to say, I hear from people out there when I was crisscrossing the province, of course, a lot during the election and since then. And a lot of people are concerned about their safety. They're also concerned about things like auto theft in some parts of our province, particularly in areas like Brampton. Those are really significant concerns for people. But again, we're not really seeing the government take the kind of action that's necessary to address those. They just want to talk about things that, frankly, they don't have any control over.
And Ms. Stiles, before I let you go, I'd be remiss. You did mention the election. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, are we going to see your name on the list for federal NDP leader? Come on.
Oh, gosh. Look, I have to say, Ontario is the biggest economy in Canada. We're probably going to be the hardest hit by a lot of what Donald Trump is attacking us with these tariffs. My focus is 100%, and my whole team here on standing up for Ontario, growing our economy, and helping protect people in this time. I think that's going to be a really big job, and I'm going to keep doing it.
Okay, I had to ask. We go back to 2 elections ago.
Yeah.
All right, Ontario NDP leader Marit Stiles. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.